operation.
You're running full speed, but the markets are faster. Quasar Markets Live brings the world's top financial minds to you. Everything you need to know in one place. Learn from elite educators and gain a competitive edge, leveling the playing field for you. Join the conversation. Quasar Markets Live.
Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. Happy Monday, everybody. It's been an eventful weekend. U.S.-Israel attacked Iran is definitely the headline story. General Kane is on most major networks right now addressing the United States. We had Defense Secretary Hegseth on already. But, you know, this has been a multi-day attack. And again, the biggest takeaway or the headline I'm seeing is this is not a single overnight operation. This is a major combat operation. Definitely seems to be the case. This does not seem to be, you know, like what we saw a few months ago where we got in and out and it was one overnight attack. The president made clear that this is going to last longer. I don't doubt him at all on this one, for a few different reasons. What has sort of backfired, or what I'm reading is backfired, again, you know, everything is sort of secondhand here, has been Iran's choice to attack, especially the sort of resort areas of, you know, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and other areas, Qatar and Oman, that have been allies of theirs in the past. And what we've seen over the last 24 hours, quite frankly, has been a little bit of a move from condemnation of the United States and Israel to condemnation of Iran by its, you know, neighbors there. So that sort of change might make this even more of an emboldened move by the U.S. and Israel. Obviously, you know, the big takeaways are that they, you know, the leader was taken out along with a lot of the major players on that first attack on Saturday. And let's take a look. I mean, market is definitely in a risk-off setup. We start with the fact that the, you know, Dow Jones is down about 90 basis points. Again, well off of its lows, though. Its lows were down in that 48,170 area. Right now, it's sitting in that, you know, 48,564 area. So we've seen a decent job by some of these in, you know, rebounding this morning. So this is a 15-minute chart, and you can see we bottomed out right around 3:30 a.m. on most of these, and we've been doing a pretty good job of pushing back to the upside. Quite frankly, and the Dow is now, you know, like I said, they're at the high. Same thing, S&P, sort of same type of setup as you can see here on this 15-minute chart. 3:30, we bottomed out. We've been moving back up since. And the NASDAQ, a very similar setup also. Again, bottomed out 3:30, moving back since. So the three indices are moving in a very similar pattern today. So that is one other takeaway to look at for sure. When we look at The VIX volatility index is telling the story, right? It is rather elevated at 2312. But when I say that again, when it opened up, it spiked all the way up to 2524 before pulling back. But again, off of the lows of the morning. So it has been fluctuating. We had seen it make a move to the upside, then blow back down to the downside. And as people are speaking, it looks like that news conference is over now. But it's going to be a lot of tweet analysis today. Without a doubt, we're going to have to see what the market is showing us. There are going to be some, and we'll go through right here. So rates have moved up, unfortunately, and in a pretty significant way. The 10-year is back above 4 here. So coming off of the lows down in the trying to break below 3.9 on Sunday night. Now we see where it is now. So again, moving in the wrong direction. There for risk on assets, if you can earn more money for keeping your money in a money market or in a bond, a lot of times that's a choice. So folks are definitely choosing bonds today. They are also choosing the dollar back up at 98.45. It was in the 98.50 area. So good to see that also. But King Dollar starting to poke its head. Isn't in a place where we should be too worried about it affecting the risk on, risk off aspect of the markets. It more shows that in times of turmoil, whether or not people want to admit it, they run back to dollars. They're also continuing to run to the hedges of gold and silver. Gold trying to break back above 5,400 here. And we can see here it's made a pretty big move back to the upside. Here, not all the way back to its all-time highs of last month at that right around 5,600, but 5,400 and spiking to the upside. Same thing with silver back at 94.15. Not unexpectedly, gas and crude under pressure here. WTI at 72, almost it got as high as 73 overnight. Brent crude broke 80 back down here at 79.09. And the question there is going to be, or what everyone is going to focus on, is the Straits of Hormuz. No ships in it as of right now, at least on the last update I saw everywhere. So without any ships going through, that's going to put a lot of pressure on oil, gas prices, and natural gas, which has jumped up here. Also on the nat gas side, we also have where major companies shutting down production due to that bottleneck in shipping. So we do see that playing out. Crypto, I am pleasantly surprised. And what I mean there is, it got hit with what we would term as a black swan event, without a doubt, and it moved down in reaction to it. But what happened is 63,000 held up pretty good. Buyers stepped in pretty quickly. If you look at the shorter term chart there, you can see sort of the quickness that responded in. It made its move back pretty quickly here. And that was good to see. So that move here, from the drop down on Saturday, it dumped straight down in an elevator fashion, as crypto does, to 63 and change, and it bounced right back to where it had dropped from. So has gotten since there. We're having some pullbacks, but for me, structurally, it didn't set a new low. We didn't see a secondary level of capitulation. We didn't even test that 60,000 that we had gone down to on the 5th. We only got to 63 and saw a solid bounce. I do think we retest 63. I think there's a pretty good chance we retest 60. What I do think is the chances of breaking further below that are getting less and less as structurally things are stepping up. Friday's ETF inflows, outflows, I said we'd be watching for that. They did have a little bit of outflows, about 27 million, but that means that last week we had almost $250 million, or $750 million in inflows into the US ETFs. That, to me, without a capitulation on Friday, shows maybe institutions are stepping back in a bigger way. So again, for me, bigger takeaway on crypto was the way it held up on the drop. Same thing with Ethereum back at 1930. So regained that key 1900 level, and again, swooped down to 1836 and shot right back up. We'll see how that plays out today, because the rest of that risk on, risk off aspect is not going well. And crypto is still a risk on asset without a doubt. Overseas markets don't give us a lot of hoopla going in. Nikkei down over 2% in Hong Kong. That's Japan. Hong Kong down about 2% also. And the European stock market had been faring a little bit better, but it's now down about 1.88 and looks to be at lows of the session maybe here. So weakness still clicking in here as we get through, as people digest what's going on. Looking at what is moving up, it would make sense that with gas and oil prices moving up, we see names like Occidental up this morning about 6.5%, 7%. We also see Devon Energy up. Fang had been up, or there it is. Fang up also about 5.68. ConocoPhillips up about 5% also. So energy names definitely catching a bid so far. Some of the mineral names, as you can imagine, are catching a bid also, as we see those gold and silver prices. Although I will say this has not been as even across the board as it has been on the energy side, but we do see NEXT up about 10-11%. APA up another 8% today. LITE, Lumenthum up. Also, Red Cat Technology, so defense-based technology companies moving up nicely. LITE and RCAT. Couple of others, Laser, LASR, which is Enlight, moving up. AVAV, the drone maker, of course, with everything going on, up about 10.4%, which would lead me into some other defense names that are up today. Kratos, defense contractor we talk about a lot, up about 7%. RTX, Raytheon, up 6.23%. And that sector, again, Northrop Grumman, up about 4.66. The Israeli defense contractor ESLT, up about 5%. Halliburton, Lockheed Martin. So sectors, you can really see the winners are energy, mining companies, and defense contractors. There is a few select other names in there, but that is the majority of the early morning movers to the upside. Got to pull it out here to put it to the other side. Laggard so far. This is an interesting one. AES Corporation is going to go private, for $15 a share, about an $11 billion transaction there. But AES, the electronic utility company, is going to go private. So backwards there, out of the markets, down about 16.78 on that news. When we look at laggards to start to make sense on the other side of what's going on in the Middle East, can't imagine many people want to get on a cruise ship right now, number one. Number two, the gas that they use is one of the largest expenses. So even if they are going out on the cruises still, it is going to cost a lot more for the gas. So we see Carnival down about 7.55%. That is CCL, Charlie Lima. We also see Norwegian, NCLH, November Charlie Lima Hotel down. And RCL, it is down also about 6% as well. Another sector that, as you can imagine, gets affected by gas and oil prices pretty quickly, along with disruptions, would be airlines. And American Airlines, as such, is down about 6.35% here, slated to open about 12.23. Delta Airlines also down about 6% here, and that's after being down about 7% on Friday going into this. We also had, looks like those are the major two. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Nope. Those are the major two down. I did say that some of, mining wasn't as clean a move. And I bring that up because Sigma Lithium is down about 15% over the last two trading sessions. So we do see a couple of mineral companies that were not also in that same boat. I'm trying to figure out where I had seen one or two others also. Albemarle was another one down about 4.2% here. So Critical Metal Corp down 4.07. So we do see those are down so far. Not surprising. Also, the more beta names, the more risky names are down. SoundHound AI, things with the AI in the name seem to be down today. Also, Astera Labs down about 4.88% here today. Applied Digital down about 4.73%. Some of the semi names, NVTS, November, Victor, Tango Sierra down about 4.78%. Also, hotels getting hit pretty hard, as you can imagine. Marriott down about 4.66% here. Crypto adjacent names are down, even though crypto, like I said, has held up pretty well. Cipher Digital down about 4.5%. IREN down about 4.37%. Block that was up, really nicely on Friday is giving back about 3.75% here. Also, nuclear was under a little bit of pressure, I noticed here for some reason. NNE down about 4%. Quantum names like Rigetti, RGTI, and Qubit, QUBT, are down today also from a bigger standpoint. So again, there isn't a ton of sectors that are moving up, but they are moving up nicely on the energy sector. Some of the gold and mineral companies and defense companies. So those names are the names that are getting some love. The names that are under the most pressure on the other side of that are beta names, tech companies, and such. Let's take a quick look through the Mag 7. They are all slated to open up negative here, with, it looks like Tesla, Google, actually, the number one lagged down about 2.5% here at 303.59. We also see Amazon down more than 2% here this morning. And Tesla down about 2.36%, back below the 400 level at 393. Nothing's really bucking the trend. Nothing really close to going positive. Microsoft down about 0.5 percentage point. Is the best producer so far. I mentioned chips are still under pressure today, also, with NVIDIA down about 1.29% so far also. And if we take a look at the different sectors of the S&P, the only one that is green so far is energy, up 3.88%. All the other sectors, the other 10 sectors, 11 sectors, are down. Tech's down about 1.45%. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, tech is down about 1.45. Consumer discretionary down almost 2%. Financials down about 1.38. Communication down more than a point here also. So you can see where the laggards are. They're down about a point and a half on a broader based level. You know, we'll talk more about Steve with what he's looking at for, when do you start to think that maybe you can look long on things? Is he going to be chasing energy or any of these other names, or is he trying to get ahead of the beta names? We'll find out from him what he feels is the right way to play this today for sure, and get all his insights on what is going on the macro picture. There are some earnings reports today, so I don't want to say there isn't. In fact, we'll get a lot of a read on the retail sector. We have results from a large swath of the sector coming in this week, so we'll find out, are they rebounding? So far most things have been past earnings good, forward guidance not so great. So this week we get Target TGT comes up on Tuesday. So definitely one to keep an eye on here. Give you a decent bellwether. They've been under a lot of pressure. They have a new CEO. He was going back. What I want to see is, how are those turnaround plans working? Their move to try to go back to what made them very popular, the old, what my wife used to call Chez Target, the cheap chic versus being more of a staples type company. Consumer staples. I don't mean staples as in stapling a piece of paper. So we'll see there. Costco, which is Charlie October Sierra Tango. They go on deck on, I believe, Thursday. Let me just double check that here. Yeah, Thursday. There I'll be looking to see, a bunch of different things there. With what I like about Costco is we see both sides of that K-shaped economy. We see our folks buying more toilet paper and, essentials. And are they still seeing folks on the higher end coming in to buy their luxury goods that they've really done a good job of increasing? We also have Best Buy up this week, Ross up this week, Bath and Body Works, Abercrombie Fitch, Urban Outfitters, Burlington, BJ's, Cracker Barrel. There is a huge amount. Outside of retail, we do have a few coming up. If I'm not mistaken, Broadcom on the chip side, which is the second largest of the chip companies, will be doing their earnings on the 5th, so on Wednesday. They're down about 2.92% today, and I mentioned that chips in general are under a little bit of pressure today, as the tech sector is. Marvell, one of them that sort of combines beta with chips, and that it tends to move the most or have the most volatility in the chip sector. They're down about 2.62, and again, they go into earnings on Thursday. Those are the big ones for me that I'll be keeping an eye on this week. Trying to think if there's other earnings plays I'm really looking at. I don't think so. Let me just double check here in the earnings calendar. It is a pretty wide swath. We've got, about 200 today, 100 tomorrow, 150 on Wednesday, and back to 200 on Tuesday. So that is one thing that we'll keep an eye on, is earnings, of course, this week. Hopefully they start to take a front seat, not a back seat, to everything else going on. That would definitely be more what we want to see there. Trying to think Berkshire Hathaway had their earnings over the weekend. First one since the retirement of Warren Buffett. Overall, from what coverage has really shown or talked about has been pretty positive. They liked his letter. They thought he did a pretty good job with it seems like. So that was, that was a good takeaway for him, for Mr. Abel there. They're down about 1%. They didn't make as much money as they had. They went down. Trying to think what other earnings takeaways I had there for them. They didn't really make much, they didn't really have a huge move. No buybacks or dividends, so that they kept in line, so they obviously don't feel their stock is a value right now. If you don't know, Mr. Buffett has always said he only does buybacks when he feels that the stock is trading at a below its value. So that's what he always looks for here. Just trying to think of anything else I sort of was looking at going into the morning. No, it's really following, like I said, does energy and gold continue to tick up? Will be a question there to keep an eye on. Do the beta names continue to fall? When do they start to find a floor? Do we start to get more of a feeling of this is short-term, bump, or are we in for a multi-week issue here? That will be definitely some of the questions for BigBeat we have right off the bat. But so far, markets set to open all three indices to the downside. NASDAQ's down about 1.37%, the biggest laggard. We see the S&P down about 1.05, same with the Dow. Volatility index up at 2345 and starting to tick back a little bit to the upside. Got over 25 earlier today before pulling back or overnight. Rates are continuing to slide up. 10-year up 1.6%. The further you go back in the calendar there, or yield, it's not as bad. 30-year at 1.08. Dollar, so for all the talk that King Dollar is dead, maybe it's not, as that is up almost a full percentage point today at 98.55 and continuing to rise throughout the morning. Gold and silver continue to be the hedge people really look at. They're off of the highs, but they still gold at almost 5,400, silver at 93.70 here this morning. Gas and crude definitely ticking to the upside still here and getting back to the highs. So it looks like as people are digesting what just came out of the Pentagon, maybe they're looking for more or longer proactive war, as we see both WTI up 7.5%, Brent up 8.26%. It's also hitting nat gas pretty hard this morning, up 4.4%. That is after the shutdown of the LNG there through the Straits of Hormuz. Also, crypto back under a little bit of pressure. I guess because I talked well about it earlier. It did bounce back. It did not break below 63. Very positives there. We did not see a huge outflows of ETFs on Friday, so another very positive thing there. Again, the fact that it only got down to 63 and it bounced back to 66 very quickly shows that we do start to see that buy the dip mentality is clicking back in there. Overseas markets points to extended losses for us. The Nikkei is now down about 2.5%. Hong Kong index down over 2%, and the stocks now approaching down 2%. So we do see the world markets continuing to slip this morning. So the question is, does that lead all the way through hours or not? And again, that separation between the only sector that is moving up, which is energy this morning, up a little over 4% now. So that is moving back to the upside. Downside more than 2% now is discretionary, 1.64 to the downside on technology, and financials down 1.5%. Well, I see he's ready to get started here, so I'm going to play his intro, get him in. The big man himself, Stephen Orr.
When markets move, Stephen E. Orr takes the chair. From the White House to Wall Street, he's spent decades at the intersection of policy, markets, and real capital. And he's seen firsthand how institutions use data behind closed doors. Now, as founder of Quasar Markets, his mission is to pull those signals into the open so everyone can see what really moves the markets. This is Stephen E. Orr, Big Beat on Wall Street. Let's filter the future live.
Big Beat, how are you doing this Monday, my friend?
Good morning, Howard. How are you, my man?
I'm doing okay. Obviously, the big news, big everything is based around Iran. So we're at tweet analysis versus, technical analysis.
Yeah, I had a chance to watch the Secretary of Defense, War, whatever we call it nowadays. I don't know, Pete's out of his league, but the General Kane, I thought, gave a great explanation of what was going on and how we were going to take on. What's interesting about this whole dynamics now is that the president and the secretary have both called this war. Obviously, there's a little thing called the Constitution that they say they love. They missed part of that. You can't declare war. Only the Congress can declare a war. So I don't know. It's not technically a war, by the way, folks. It is a police action, as we call it, policy policing. So I'm not really sure what that's about. I have to. Let me just put it this way. I'm buying the market here. I don't think this is going to be a long one. I don't want to see any more deaths, especially from our side. We've already had deaths on our side already. Wow. Iran is not a country to mess with and heavy, but they do not need a nuclear bomb. So I definitely agree with the White House on this. And I agree with the way that it's done. And I agree that the Iranian people are stepping up. Now, I've heard the word Iran a few times, like some Southerner, like it's not, it's Iran. And Iranian people have stepped up. So, you know what? The president's right. He's saying, look, we're going to give you an opportunity to overthrow your government if that's what you want. And so it seems that that's the case. So now both sides have to step up. I knew that things were happening because I do live in Tampa area, and CENTCOM is where, Southern Command, SOCOM and CENTCOM. But you have to look at this from a perspective of, and this question was asked several times, how long is this going to go on? And I think Pete Hegseth made a very good answer. We're not going to telegraph this like previous administrations. We're not going to tell you what we're going to do. We have direct, clear instructions of what to do, and we're going to heed those. That's what we're going to do. I don't think there is clear direction, but if the clear direction is to get rid of the bomb, then or the ability to enrich uranium, which both times that we sent in the envoy, Witkoff and Kushner, that the Iranian people said that they did not want to do that, right? Or the Ayatollah said that no way, that's off the table every time, and came back, but said, well, we'll talk about it, and then again. So I understand why we're doing this, and I'm okay with this. I support the president in this. I don't support how he did it. I think this he I don't know, maybe he forgets he is the president of the United States, that we are under some laws. But I do understand why we're doing it. And so I get that, right? So let's see how that goes. But right now, I'm buying the market. I think dips like this can be easily bought. We don't talk about the buy or sell here, but you know what? If this is a quick and easy one, then yes. If this is not, I'm seeing news now that Apple is thinking about interesting. Apple is mulling over whether Google can host Siri as needed for cloud. That's according to the information. Forget it. That data is always wrong. So I don't know, Howard. It's a very interesting times that we do live in, and I know the old adage, "Oh, may you always live in interesting times." This is one I really don't want to live in.
Yeah, no one likes war. For me, I think that I don't think we're going to see boots. Well, I pray we don't see boots on the ground there. But I do think that the U.S. and Israel are more emboldened because of the reaction that came. Iran misjudged something from what I'm reading pretty badly when they went after Dubai and Abu Dhabi and attacked like hotels.
They just pissed off all the Arab world. Absolutely.
Yeah, and they went after like the hotels and
centers. Doha. I mean, these are places that are very common, and you just pissed off your neighbors.
Yeah, so now they've gone from condemning the U.S. to condemning Iran, and that changes the narrative a lot, and it gives a little bit more to our, both Israel and the U.S. to go finish the job, so to speak. So I do think that adds to it. But we've also like you said, I would point out that war is usually a good time to start buying some stocks that are beaten down. That get beaten down. If the only reason it's beaten down is because of what's happened in the Middle East, then look at it. If it's beaten down for another narrative or another reason, then that doesn't, war also doesn't necessarily change that. And what I would also say is be careful chasing the energy names, the mineral names, the defense names.
Oh, I'm shorting oil. I'm shorting that. I'm shorting gold. I'm shorting silver. I think, look, when you look at, I can tell you right now, there's the gold prices are out of control right now, and this is nonsense. So I love it. At 5,400 makes me happy.
If oil was going to go to 100, it would have went to 100.
Right. And during Gulf, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, it did. Right. I think a lot of people, and I'll post it here if you want to watch what's really going on in oil. There you go. I posted right there in the go to Twitter and type that in #OOTT, and that's how you can follow oil if you want to follow oil pricing, not just your charts. If you want to find out what actual oil traders are doing, that's the secret way to doing it. So
yeah, and you just got to look for boats. There's no ships in the Straits of Hormuz right now. That's a big problem.
We don't need to. I mean, the reason that we go to the Strait of Hormuz is that it's easier to pass through, but we don't need to. We can go anywhere else, and there's a lot of places to go. Yeah, I mean, the Qs are bouncing a little bit here. One stock I want to look at today is RCL. Royal Caribbean down about 7% here on a bond offer. I believe, I'm not sure how big that bond was. I think let's look it up. But we're hearing reports now that AWS outage has knocked out large parts of the internet here. Let me see here. Yeah,
I know that was in the Middle East earlier that they took out a data center there. I don't know if that's here. I do know there was
down, Rock is down, Gemini's down, Spectrum was down, AWS, yes, it is getting smacked. Microsoft 365, which is terrible anyway. Outlook is down. Wow. Yeah, okay. We got some things that are down. OpenAI is up, Twitter's up, Google's down, Microsoft's down. Wow.
That will start to spook some people too.
Yeah, most definitely. But I think the bond market here for RCL tells you that it's not healthy. We know this, right? Corporate bonds are unhealthy. But I understand why they're doing it. They're looking to build even bigger ships, and I like that. It's expansion, so that's exactly why you do that. So I like that. I'll be buying some RCL here on the open here, I think.
Nice. And all of the cruise ships are down. Also and that a lot has to do with their number one expense is really gas, oil for their
bad in Mexico. A lot of the ship goes to Mexico a lot, and a lot of ships have to stop not going to Mexico. So yeah,
absolutely for there. Steve, other sectors that are getting beat up, obviously all the beta names today. So are you looking at the chip sector maybe? What sectors are you thinking? You looking at the Mag 7?
Yeah, I'm buying. I bought a little more core weave this morning on that dip. Yeah. I don't know. I needed some of this to play out a little bit. I really do need to play out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the market will tell us once it starts to open here what traders are thinking, and we'll see where money sort of starts to flow to from there. Rates are up. VIX got up as high as 25. It's starting to cool off a little bit here, back down in the 23. Steve, any takeaways from Berkshire Hathaway's weekend meetings that interest you? Anything there? It seemed like straight same as yesterday to me is what I sort of took away, just without Warren.
Greg Abel is it seems to me that he is trying to act like Warren Buffett, but being his own guy. So I read a little bit of it. Obviously, I had a pretty terrible weekend. I didn't get a chance to completely read it. So yeah.
Yeah, no big things there. The bigger news was no buybacks, no dividend. So he just like Warren doesn't feel that the stock is undervalued at this point, that it's fairly valued. So nothing there. No real big takeaways. And again, like I said, it was more no news is good news. There was the takeaway that I got. Steve, we didn't really get much of your take on it. What do you think about Anthropic, OpenAI, Department of Defense? Sort of a lot of shuffling over the last 3 or 4 days.
To me, it feels like wah. I need a baby rattle and a baby bottle. I mean, like, oh, you're not going to do what I tell you to do, so out you go. I don't know, breaking the laws. I don't know. It's maybe not do that. The thing that people are worried about is their data getting out, right? And using AI to kill people. It's like, come on. Wow. I don't. Yeah, no. Ouch. I give it to Anthropic standing up to that. So yeah.
Yep. No, I agree. OpenAI is who they partnered with over the weekend.
And even they're saying they may back out, but they have money problems.
Well, but no, they said that the DoD gave them assurances they wouldn't use it for the things that there. So now it's like, why would you tell one company one thing and the other company the other? I don't quite get it. Steve, this week's a big week.
Diapers.
Yeah, this week's a big week for retail. We got Target coming up, we got Costco coming up, Best Buy, Abercrombie and Fitch. Big swath of the retailers. Any of those you're looking at more than others, or are you looking at any reads from any of them? For me, I mentioned Costco. I like to see what people are buying. They give you a good read into the entire economy because they do a good job with the luxury items and they do a good job with staples. Are people buying toilet paper, or are they buying bottles of expensive wine is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't think there's anything. Look, I think we just need to see what's going to happen here. You look at the weekend and we don't really know what's happening, right? You see Dubai, you see the Emirates starting to fly again. You're starting to see, things are trying to get back to normal. And the president made a very clear decision that I do not want Iran to have the bomb. I agree with that. You don't want radical Islam to have the ability to impose its will, right? And so let's see how that plays out. That's going to hold in the whole market. I don't think it's going to be based on earnings. I don't think it's based on tweets today. I think really the trepidation has gone, and I hate to say it, but the pressure off of Epstein has come off a little bit. Now it really is on war. So we know what wag the dog means. We watch the movies. We've all seen it. We all know that, read the books. And that's what's happening, right? We know that. But at the same time, the president is right. We do need to stop Iran. Look, that's to me is what this whole market's about. I don't think it's about earnings right now. I think people are just very nervous. Are they going to pull money out because of it? Not yet. Not yet. But they will be. They will start to if this war lasts long in time. And they try to nail him down. I tried to nail Pete Hegseth down. And he just said, I'm not going to tell you when and how and everything else. I thought General Kane did it. As I always say, we need adults in the room in that administration. And General Kane gave a very clear, very decisive positioning of how we were doing this and what we were doing. And I was very impressed by that. So I thought that they have there's a very clear and present danger, as they say in the military. There's a clear and present danger. And General Kane is well aware. Now, you remember that Trump said that he knew more than the generals. So this is a general that's not picked by the president. This is a general that's actually pretty much. I mean, yes, it is, but not really, because it was pushed up. It's like the only one left standing. So here we are. And I think that the control of the military by the JCOF, Joint Chief of Staff, right? For those of you who don't know, we call it the rings. The Pentagon's called the rings for a reason, because it's a ring. It goes depending on what ring you're in. Okay. The top ring is very, 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 very off limits to everybody, and that's not normal, right? Normally, the rings are not that way, and because of this could be a longer term war. So I want people to understand that, right? Sorry, it's Howard, you and I, all the years of knowledge of Washington, we know how it works. No, it's not based on how many pizzas are sold around the Pentagon. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, because there are other places to eat. That's dumb retail being dumb about dumb things, doing dumb things, trying to get people to.
Especially since the Pentagon has its own fast food restaurants in the Pentagon.
Correct. It has its own cafeteria, folks. So
its own McDonald's and its own Chick-fil-A and its own
Pizza Hut. It has everything.
Yeah, they have their own internal ones.
So it's a stupid thing. But let's talk about that for a second. The people that do live in there in the areas, they do live there, right? I've lived in I lived in Pentagon City for a while. I love Pentagon City, by the way. There's a mall there I love, and there's also a metro that goes right there. And when the war picks up, the metro subway stops using it. Okay, so be careful, folks. That's when you'll say that war is really picking up. Is when the metro doesn't stop at the Pentagon. Absolutely. So right, so that's an issue to me. So let's keep our eye on that, and I think that's a little clearer picture than the pizza. Whatever that stupid thing is. I don't even.
For sure. I see he's getting ready to come in here. We'll get him in here. Mr. Flanagan, I'm going to bring you in. I got to get moving. You guys go at it. But Mr. Flanagan, King Dollar, I guess, is not dead yet, right?
That's right, Howard. Obviously the safe haven aspect of the dollar shone bright. Nobody likes war. I don't like the dollar moving on those reasons, but it does show the weakness to holding these dollar short positions, which are incredibly excessive in the marketplace. So watch the dollar right now. Dollar index 98.53. The high has been 57.
Yeah.
Last close 97.65. 99.15 is the objective. I'll back off once we get around there.
Yeah. Steve, we just saw a few minutes ago, Secretary of, I'm going to say Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War is silly. SecDef, he's not the adult in the room here. General Kane, to me, gave a really direct answers and really answered the questions of what was going on about, I get the rah, America that the Secretary is saying, but if you, once that's old, right? Now we've made this decision. The president's made this decision to go in, and he has gone in, and he has, and he's saying that the reason being is because we don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon or weapons of mass destruction. All of that I agree with, and I also agree with Secretary Hegseth about saying we're not going to telegraph how we do this. So I like that too. I thought that was very smart, but. Enough of the rah-rah-ree where American exceptionalism. Now they went into explaining what's going to happen and the length of it. And then Secretary said that he is not going to talk about the length of it, how we do it, what we're going to do. And yes, there's going to be deaths. How does that translate into investing? Because to me, Steve, I bought Royal Caribbean this morning. And on the dip, and I bought Nvidia and I bought CoreWeave this morning before the market opened, because I think there's a lot of people that are trying to short this market will start buying up on the open. This does feel differently than Desert Shield, Desert Storm, the beginning of other wars that you and I've gone through. Obviously you went through Vietnam too, so I have not. But that talk to me a little bit about this whole feeling right now that you're seeing, especially from the perspective of how you run for the last 45 years?
Well, first of all, let's go back to Friday. And I keep emphasizing you have to have a hedge on a Friday because we've got weekend risk. Almost every weekend of this year so far has presented ourselves with weekend risk. So that's number one. I particularly like UVXY. I'm up pretty big on that. What is that? It's a defensive hedge against a long portfolio. So really what it does is it just minimizes my losses as I look at my portfolio when the market opens here today. Okay. It is a little different. Iran has always been kind of given extra rope. We're all against the fact of a Islamic nation that calls on the destruction of its neighbors to have a nuclear weapon. The problem here is the Straits of Hormuz. With 20% of the global oil going, and Iran very capable of sinking a tanker, which I think news reports say they came close, although it was an Iranian shadow oil tanker, shadow fleet, that apparently they fired upon, at least from what I've read. So that's a big concern, and energy prices are reflecting that. I do believe it'll be a short war, if we want to call it conflict. The head of the state has already been taken out. I think it will be short. I like your strategy, Steve. Again, you're looking through the windshield, and you're saying, I believe this will be confined. I don't think that there'll be terrorist events around the globe. And I think that this is a good buy opportunity. I agree. As I've said, the month of March is going to be even more volatile than what we've seen this year. And the secret is you buy dips and you sell the rips. But if you're an investor, you're buying the dip, because I think that this will be a short skirmish. It's unfortunate that there is a loss of life. But in the world and the vision of where the United States and the world are going in technology with AI leading, there is no place for terrorism. We've got to get rid of this ugly part of our global daily barrage of news. Terrorism, car bombs that blow up in innocent places and just kill people. The state-sponsored nature of terrorism today has to be obliterated, and I think that's really what's going on, which sets the tone for a safer world that everybody in the globe can participate in.
It's interesting. The old Mark Twain adage, about opening your mouth and proving that you're an idiot. I think that Iran did that when they bombed their neighbors, their supposed quote allies in the Arab world, right? Bahrain, Doha, places that had tepid support, but at least supported them because they were Muslim. Saudi Arabia said no to the bases. Now everybody's opening up because they're now they're hitting their hotels. Like, why is Iran hitting hotels, right? Are they hitting the hotels of the trying to hit the Americans in the hotels because they're not there, right? I think Iran showed their cards, and I think they don't have any cards. And I think that this is an opportune time for to take this country over, pretty much.
Totally agree. Everybody has always been shuddering when Iran has stepped in to, make some sort of actions or voicing their opinions in the Middle East. And everybody's been living in that shadow. The shadow was that Iran could strike at any moment. It's very difficult to have a negotiated settlement with them when they act in this manner. And you're right. Today, what they have shown, and yesterday, is that they were going to do this all along. They're just going to fire indiscriminately into populous places and inflict a lot of loss of human life. There's no strategy behind where they're sending their drones.
Yeah, and the Ayatollah is gone. The warmongering, the fist raising, the clattering of saber rattling, as we call it, has tempered down a bit there in Iran now. And the president said something very interesting that I thought was, okay, we've done this now. Iranian people, now go take over your government, right?
And that's the next step, Steve. Who's going to step up? Are they? It's very difficult to get information out of there, but there are some social media sites that are showing a lot of people taking to the streets. And, I think the sign that you're beginning to see is Trump help. So it would be interesting if we begin to see the formation of a government. They already apparently have one. And we'll work with them, provided that there's one point you're not getting nuclear weapons. End of story. I think they would like to see a free election and then let Iran go and do what they want to do. Iran is a very proud nation. Yes. We are old enough to understand the Iranian hostage crisis when the Shah of Iran, who was, a U.S., call it a puppet, okay. But Iran was a heck of a lot better off back in those days from the people's point of view than it has been ever since that they've been under this type of religious leadership. The people have suffered and suffered with death. I don't know how many thousand were killed earlier this year when they protested. Some people say it's up over 20,000. So, I mean, it's horrible. It's time to go. We tried to negotiate. The one thing I think is very apparent when you sit down at a negotiating table, either negotiate or, it's not going to end.
Yeah, they weren't negotiating in all fairness, right? They had one thing in mind, that they were going to have enrichment of uranium, and that's gone now. We bombed those areas. I have seen some of the pictures now. Rough weekend, so I didn't get to see everything I'd like to see, but I can tell you that from what I saw, the diminishment of their ability to enrich uranium and their ability to do much of anything has really struck chord. And I think hitting other countries, I think Iran's going it alone in a lot of ways, right? And now that the leadership is gone, we're here. Now the British, we saw from Keir Starmer also saying it was British ships going in, as well as airplanes or fighter jets going in as well. So this is not us going it alone again, and this is Iran going at it alone. So this seems to be a very one-sided thing, and I think it could be quick. If that's the case, Steve, I think the markets are ripe to be bought.
I totally agree, Stephen. Struggling over the weekend outside of what we've just discussed as the reason for going after Iran, I can't help not linking Venezuela and Iran. What is the commonality between them? Both are huge exporters of oil to China.
Yep, they are. And China's talking about getting involved, but they're not happy.
China can't get involved because they can't extend their military much beyond, their borders. It's not, they don't have the type of structure that the United States has. But what I am thinking about, and I let my mind kind of go off on this.
Okay.
If Iran has threatened rare earths, which they control most of it, now the U.S. can basically threaten oil, which is, fuels their entire economy.
And we are open here, Steve. So I'll leave the charts open. QQQ's first move there is to the upside here. So let's see how it goes. No, I agree. I think China's just. I think China's having. I don't know. China seemed to. Well, no, I was slipping here a little bit. China seemed to be not happy about the war in Iran. He's pretty much said disposing a dictator is wrong.
Well, they lose their big, oil place, in Venezuela too, and China imports all of its oil. So
That's right.
This is an Achilles heel to them. Anyway, I just speculating on that, but certainly, in the game of chess that gets played at much higher levels than where we are. Although, Steve, you did delve into that world in your earlier career. In that game of chess, though, anything is possible. You really don't know. And let's face it, I keep talking, about a quantum convergence of everything coming together. Before that can happen, you got to clear the deck, because war is the one disruptor to any sort of bright future that humanity can look to gain from this technology expansion.
All right, I did buy a little CoreWeave here too as well, folks. So CoreWeave is pushing higher here. Look at that push up there. I would like that.
Wow, you play this one really well. That's a couple
70. I got some at 76.47 on the open before the open this morning, as I said earlier. Let me just see what I've got here. Yeah, Qs are pushing here now. Or we've actually could actually go north here, I think. I really thought Friday that we could have seen a positive day at the end, but there's just too much nervousness, I think. They are talking about Cheniere Energy, LNG. There you go, LNG up to 6.4%. Cheniere,
one of my favorites.
Yeah. Remember when Cheniere was around $30 a share?
Yes, I do.
And I called this. Yeah. All right. It just seems to be quiet, though. And considering, there's not really a lot of movement here.
Yeah, what are you trading on today? You're trading under the threat of, does this expand? Does this battle, this conflict expand beyond the borders of the Middle East there? Do we begin to see things happening in London, in Paris? Why not? They've struck at their local friends in hitting hotels. That's really what everybody's trading on right now. Does it expand? Right. Will it be over quickly? Because it's very difficult to make an investment decision in the threat of war.
Buy the rumor, sell the news, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot of, again, numbers. I watch Europe extremely carefully because I'm very negative overall on Europe. Every once in a while, I get a glimmer of hope, and then I get German retail sales minus 0.9, Swiss retail sales minus 1.1. And then, you look at manufacturing PMI throughout the entire Eurozone, it's unchanged. And UK PMI, down again. I just don't get it, as while we're being, distracted here with this event going on. Next week, we're moving right into the heart of central bank meetings, with the 17th really starting us off, March 17th. So, your thought, beware the Ides of March. A lot can happen between today, March 2nd, and when we get into March 17, 18, and 19, and almost every major central bank has a meeting, an awful lot can happen. And I do believe as we get to the end of March, this negative cloud that we're in moves aside. April's going to be a great month. Yep,
I agree. Royal Caribbean pushing a little bit here. I think I like this dip buying here, Steve. I don't see anything in here. One thing that I did see over the weekend is Apple releasing all their new products, new iPads, new MacBook Pros, touchscreens. There's all kinds of things that are going on at Apple. And it seems to be fairly flat. Dow only down 480 points. NASDAQ down 0.73. And the SPOOs here down 0.76. So considering that we went to war, quote war. We did not go to war. This is not that bad, actually. This isn't terrible, actually.
And everybody's on the sidelines waiting. How low is it going to go? And if you don't get a big push down in this first half hour of trading, you're going to see a lot of bottom fishers. Again, how much money is on the sidelines?
Yeah.
You know, you have to keep an eye on that because that's a heck of a lot. I think we're over $9 trillion sitting on the sidelines. And you're going to put companies like NVIDIA and things like that at levels, which it's at already, where, you know, I think it's a screaming buy if you want to, you know, be an investor and look out 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Loving CoreWeave here a little bit. Now $80 now shares. I went deeper on CoreWeave here. I thought that was good. NVIDIA now up 1% here. Palo Alto Networks, another one that I own now, is up as well. And I'm looking at Zoom here, ZM. Hood also up. Palantir up 5% on, you know, some of these war names. So there you go. Royal Caribbean 291.50 now, and the Q's now at 604, the highest of the day. So buying these dips seems to be the answer here. I think it's a little clearer.
I agree. You know, as an investor, you know, I'm just waiting over this next 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and I want to position myself on any sharp sell-off. And I think today you're seeing just, you know, one of these sell-offs. And, you know, if you're an investor, you're looking beyond the skirmish. You're looking at these things are going to be in June, July of this year. You know, I'll put a little offer in and let some go at a very nice profit.
And I wouldn't be shocked if we go green today, Steve. I said that on Friday, but I would not be shocked at all if we go green today. Not at all.
That would be remarkable, Steve. I would really think that what that shows the true color of the market. And how could the market go positive on a day like today when you kind of say the negatives are almost culminating, you know, today?
Well, we already know what the negatives are, right? I think they're already out there is what I'm saying.
Right. You know, last week we talked about the threat of war with Iran.
Now we know what it is. Yeah, I agree.
And, you know, you look back on this year and we've been negative this entire year. So at what point, you know, does the sentiment, and look, you can give me a million reasons why you say it's negative, and these sentiments don't last forever. They last for a period of time, positive as well. As we know, November, December, we were talking, 2026, this thing is going to fly to the upside. Well, guess what? Right. 3 months into the year, you're already now in the month where you can start looking at the end of the month in Q1 close. It's been a disaster from that portfolio perspective. But watch how the sentiment begins to turn. The negatives are out.
So RCL, I'm in at 290. We're at 293.5 now, Steve. So nice buy if you're following me on that one. CoreWeave dipping again here. It seems that CoreWeave's all over the map here, so be careful out there. But I have been buying CoreWeave. I do like that. I do like the move there. NVIDIA now up 1.3%. IBM down about 2%. And Palo Alto Networks, PANW up 0.6% on negative days, folks. This is what I'm saying. This is stock pickers market right now. And I'm starting to like this a little bit. ZSL, which is the reverse of silver. I said short gold and silver on the open. Pretty much got that nailed that one. At Lockheed Martin, LMT now up 3% here. Tesla 394.80 here, down 2%. Is Tesla done here?
Tesla is a unique. They've got such a following. On sell-offs, you have to be buying, because if you look 6 to 9 months out, they will be involved in every aspect of this technology.
Robotics. Yeah, agreed.
Robotics.
Real quickly, Steve, we're hearing now reports that the president will have remarks and will take questions from the White House at 11 o'clock this morning. He will address on Iran at 11 a.m. this morning. So that might be interesting there.
What possibly could come out of that would be what, thinking from the question point of view.
Yeah.
Questions will be, why now? Okay. Well, clearly, the opportunity to get the leader plus a lot of the structure of command and control was accomplished at that early bombings. So
Yep.
that's going to be one. But number two, have they been in touch? You got to figure a question. Have you been in touch with the people that you've called in this uprising to take over? And if he answers positively, yes, we're working with a group, and we're hoping to hear from them imminently, that is going to be a massive positive, Steve. So,
yeah, and you're absolutely right. It proves that in doing so, that we're looking, we have a team that we want to put in place. Is that right?
Absolutely. And the short nature, it's over. Again, let's bring Iran back into the global community of trade, trust.
Wow.
Steve, Iran is an incredibly proud nation with, of
huge history.
Yes. So that can only be a positive to the overall global trading system.
SPOO's only down 0.75% here, so there is some buying coming in here, Steve. It's not completely. It's not a very. Considering how negative the day is, it doesn't seem to be that negative.
And he's not going to go on air and take questions, Steve, unless he's got some sort of positive in his back pocket.
What would be positive to you, Steve?
That he's been in touch with, the Iranian people, right? I mean, let's go back, 3 weeks when they were crushing this resistance level. And he said, I will not abandon you and I will be there for you. Well, here he is. Yeah. You got to think that he made those comments. They're not unrelated comments, and the actions, they're all connected. As we can look back at Venezuela, boom, they've got a Venezuelan government running things now. So why would this be any different?
Steve, I'm buying a little bit more CoreWeave here on this dip. I like this. I bought some this morning, a little lower this morning. I mean, I'm buying a little bit more. I think it goes right back up. Yeah, I like this move on CoreWeave.
I'm gonna have to get my trading system up here, Steve.
Ha! Make some money.
Yeah. Well, I'm long CoreWeave. I'm invested in that. So, I've taken a hit here and there on this move down, but I've also been strategically adding little pieces all the way. So
Amazon says they're pledging another $40 billion to expand their AI data center infrastructure in Spain.
Wow.
Interesting. Why Spain?
Why Spain? Yeah, Spain. That's a tough one. I'm sure there's going to be some bad comments about that, but I don't understand. These companies, boy, they can reach deep into their wallets, and they're spending an awful lot of money into this AI space. Why would one think it's not going to be, as big, if not bigger?
Bitcoin moving here. Bitcoin is 66.6 now. Okay, there you go. 666. There you go. Okay. Yeah, I'm liking this here. Palo Alto Networks now up 1.09%. NVIDIA up 1.5% here.
And this is where the true nature comes out. Example: why would NVIDIA be up 1.5% today? What in the face of this war? This is where you see true moves begin.
That tectonic thing you talked about, right?
Yep. People, you have to understand that underlying this market are these models that are making investment decisions. some of them in an autonomous manner with a human watching. But when I say the true nature of the machinery, they can no longer hide. They've been on the bid buying these levels in NVIDIA.
Yeah.
And suddenly there's no more selling. They have to. They're in perpetual motion.
US S&P Global Manufacturing PMI for February coming in at 51.6 versus 51.2. Previous was 51.4. So Steve, manufacturing ticking up even more here a little bit.
Oh boy, that's a little bit each month, Steve. This is an area we got to pay attention to.
And this is what the president was saying he wanted to see, right? Was U.S. manufacturing.
U.S. manufacturing, but what it does is it answers the question of, is $18 trillion been, coming into the United States? And everybody says, well, show me where. Well, if we begin to see these numbers ebbing up, then we can suddenly say, you know what? That money's coming in. $18 trillion, that can change the face of an economy pretty quickly.
Yeah, seeing Royal Caribbean now on the highs, near the highs of the day now, 290, almost 24 there. Oh, it's bouncing a little bit off that.
Is Palantir still making its move?
Palantir now sitting at PLTR now up $6 now here, Steve, up 4.19%. There you go, my man.
Yeah, and the dollar index is still holding on to a lot of its gains here. 98.50 in the dollar, 45 in the dollar index, still up about 0.8% on the day. As the safe haven aspect of the dollar, you would expect if the markets begin to get sort of positive undertone here, then expect that the dollar index begins to come off slightly as well. Last week's close, 97.65, almost 100 points below us, and a very strong area of support now.
Royal Caribbean now, it is now on the highs today, 294.13 now. Those of you caught that with me on that dip there, 286 or somewhere around there is where I got in. Now 294. So hello. $295 now there on the Royal Caribbean.
When you're looking at like that Tesla chart there in front, is that a daily or is that how many? What's your time frame?
Well, the reason I looked at the Tesla here now, this is a daily chart, but look at that 200-day moving average. It's right below it. So I'm starting to like it here. A lot of buyers and sellers up in here, and it seems that we're starting to see a little bit of. But the question I have around it is we haven't heard much about Tesla lately, right? And that's what I'm concerned about. Like he's been quiet, but the obviously RSI is way oversold on Tesla now.
An interesting company. What's going to happen with SpaceX and XAI? They've merged together, I guess.
Yeah.
And do they then merge with Tesla now?
Very good chance of it. I think they should. And to be honest with you, I'd say make one big company, but I think they might be a little concerned of too many companies. 296 now on Royal Caribbean for those of you who are following at home. Hey. Damn. Do I take that money and run, Steve?
Why not? On a day like today, the next headline, as Howard was saying in his show, tweet analysis is, at the forefront today. One message could turn everything around. But I'll point out again, Steve, the sterling. I love the sterling dollar here. I don't like sterling, but I mean is I like focusing here. Last week we talked about consumer confidence now at minus 19, but the second half of that was in a recent by-election, their parliament, the Labour Party lost a seat that they've held for 100 years. So political uncertainty.
And Steve, I think I just got lifted on that. I had an order in at 296.50, and I did get lifted there. 296.50. Oh, look at that, 295.50. Am I the one that caught the top there? Look at that thing. Did I short this top? There you go. Okay, I like that.
What was the high?
296.87. So no, it ticked through. I'm sorry. Yeah, I see it now. Oh, I don't know that last tick. I don't know. I can't tell. Let's see that last. 290. Yeah, I can't tell, Steve. It's
pretty close to the top, though, Steven.
55, 96.55 was that. So look, my goodness, wow.
Yep. When you're trading as you are, lickety split, we call it. Move in, get the play, and then exit. Once you've exited, on to the next trade.
Okay, 294 now. So it looks like I sold that right. Bought that right and sold it right too.
Yep.
Pete Hegseth now says that Iran will never have nuclear weapons. It's kind of bold talk there. Gold and silver dropping pretty heavily here, 53.35 now. Bitcoin still pushing here a little bit. 67,151 now on Bitcoin. 67.2 now on Bitcoin, near the highs of the session here now.
And you've got to figure nobody is, bottom picking that. That's another one of those financial assets that's been absolutely hammered into the ground. And once it starts moving, everybody's going to wish they had bought the dip.
Yeah, to me, it seems it's like a quiet day here now. Once this moves, I still think we go positive on the day, Steve. Nvidia, Nasdaq's only down 100 points here now.
No, now that he's announced the press conference, you've got to be keeping your powder dry, because what about if he comes out and says we've had contact, we're going to suspend hostilities? There's so many what ifs that could come out. One thing about Trump that we have to look and say, this is the type of man he is. He doesn't go before the cameras unless he's got something to say.
I disagree with that. The man likes cameras more than I do.
Yeah. But he's always got a message, Steve. So
I don't disagree with that. I think he does. He always has a message. It's called me.
Well, if you've known him as I have, from afar, not personally.
Right. Okay.
But, in the 80s, he was just as brash talker as he is today. No difference. Always been this way. I always say simple analysis, and that is, I know he was on the left side of the table. Now he's on the right side of the table. All right. I always admire a politician who, doesn't stick to a set policy and has the ability to change.
I like the fact that he has his own mind. I think that's good, but we're hearing reports now that there's been loud explosions heard from an area of a nuclear facility and airbase in central city of Isfahan, according to Iranian news now sites reporting now. It looks like another strike on a nuclear place in Iran, Isfahan. Go. But I'm liking this, Steve. I mean, everything I see today. I mean, look, Nasdaq now down 145, but we could go positive. I think SPOO's only down 0.6% here. Another move here.
It would be amazing, Steve, if we were most like scenario is that we will end up down. But who knows what comes out of 11 o'clock? If we don't get the positive news that I'm alluding to as a possibility, then you're going to hit the bid again. And you probably come off into the afternoon trading. I don't think it's going to be aggressive in any way. Unless, of course, you hear of, more loss of life.
Yeah, I mean, when you change the narrative from, we're going to bomb them to war, the actual use of war, you almost recognize the fact that there will be loss of life. So,
right. And when you hear the words war, in a war, one side conquers.
Yeah, I agree.
If it's a skirmish, then, there's a negotiated settlement.
Yeah.
Interesting, though, that outside of comments, China and Russia have been pretty much standoffish here.
I mean, China has. I mean, obviously Xi Jinping has definitely said his piece, but I think you're right. You haven't heard much from Putin lately.
No, and next month Trump is in China.
Yeah,
that hasn't called off at all.
No.
So, and nothing. And from my experience in trading the front row and in the institution side in the currency markets, and having acted as a intermediary in the currency markets for the central banks and governments, nothing happens in the world without a reason. In other words, United States and China, ever since the framework was established, have been pretty quiet with one another. In fact, China announced last week that they have fulfilled all the parts of phase 1 and are looking forward to this meeting in phase 2. So,
but when you talk about China, though, I mean, you still have to think about the BRICS. Does Brazil and Russia and India, did they follow suit with China?
Yeah, an interesting scenario, Steve. But I'm not worried about. I've been a long-term bull on India, but I'm not anymore, and I'll tell you why.
Ooh, okay.
Because in looking at AI and the way it develops, and the headline on AI is the loss of jobs, but AI also gives us what India has offered to the world is you could hire 2 PhDs in India, maybe 3, for the price of 1 in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But if AI is now coding itself and writing, how many developers do you need? And India, that's one of the big things that they offer is human capital. I'm a little concerned right now that the AI world could really, actually impact India pretty hard. I don't think Modi is, moving fast enough in this area.
He's not prepared for it.
No, he's more interested in the fame of the BRIC nations that he seems to gain.
Tick is starting to push up here a little bit. Bitcoin back above 67 handle here again, and tick now at 264. So, but still advanced decline minus 4,300. So fairly negative days so far. But there could be a very good chance we push to the upside. I'm not concerned about this at all.
It would be a Herculean effort to get us into the positives today. But again, let's wait and see 11 o'clock and what comes out of it, because that's really going to set the stage, for the afternoon trade and, for into tomorrow. I like the dollar. I think the dollar is showing us that, again, when I say things begin to move and they show their real hand, and the dollars move up is showing the real hand. At these particular levels that we've been at, 96 and 97, those are levels to be looking to buy the dollar index. Today we're at 98.5, 98.40. The upside is 99.15. I don't really think we're going to run out and break that. But if we did break that in this move, that's going to create a lot of hurting in the currency markets, because the world is excessively short the dollar, and the dollar is rising as a safe haven aspect here. And that's something everybody has said no longer pertains to the dollar. Well, it does.
Are people buying up the dollar again now and taking their shorts off? Is that what's going on here?
I believe so, Steve. Yeah, because what's clearly being proven in a very short period of time of 1 year is that the United States is, when it makes a statement, they're here. If we tell you, Maduro, we need to negotiate, you can't be running a narco state, and you don't listen, boom. In Iran, come to the table, let's agree. No nukes in Iran. You don't agree, boom. So strength has an awful lot to do with why the dollar is the reserve currency of the world, despite all the negatives that we keep hearing.
Anthropic now says that Claude issue has been identified and the fix is being implemented. We are seeing down detector here where it's slowing down. And we're seeing Regions Bank is still down and AWS is still having problems here this morning. So Microsoft 365 is still having problems and Gemini is still having problems. So Microsoft Teams, shocker there, right? Is still down too. I'm not a big fan of Teams. Everybody knows that. But everything else seems to be okay.
Why are they all down? I mean, because, cyber warfare is huge and Iran has always been involved in that aspect as well. So these are the things, like Steve, that I'm saying. These are the negatives that as an investor, I sit and I wait. I have my defensive hedge on, but I wait because I need to see, does anything begin to pop up on the peripheral in the globe?
All right, so we're going to real quickly take a quick check on the markets and then 10 o'clock here, and we'll let everybody go. But right now, Tesla's sitting down about $7 here. The QQQ, again, right around that same area, nothing much. Pull up a 1 minute chart. It is struggling here. You can see that. And then buyers and sellers are kind of matching. So not really much. As we know, February ISM manufacturing once more again, 52.4, estimate 51.5. So manufacturing prices rise, though. So in other words, we'll see more inflation to 70.5. That's the highest since June of 2022. All right, Steve, any final thoughts here before the end of the day?
I'm going to watch 11 o'clock, Steve. That's where I'm going to make a decision as to where this day goes. So
11 o'clock. All right. And for those of you who don't know, the president speaks at 11 o'clock this morning on Eastern time. All right, for those of you watching us here at Quasar Markets Live, thanks so much. We'll see you right back here later in the day.